Alright, so now that the admittedly overly expensive PlayStation VR headset is available, a lot of attention has been focused on one of the first games released for the system, Batman Arkham VR. Even though in my opinion it's a great game that absolutely everyone should have played by now, a lot of critics have been pointing out all these flaws with it, including a low amount of overall gameplay time, a lackluster uninspired story, and worse, continuity problems. Apparently the story's confusing and doesn't really fit well into the overall Arkhamverse timeline, except no, that's wrong. It totally does. The problem here isn't that it's a game riddled with continuity problems, it's that people haven't really picked up on the subtle clues that point to the game's specific place in the timeline. So let me try to clear things up here. And by the way, major spoilers for Batman Arkham VR in case you haven't played it yourself or looked anything up. Alright, now this is how the four main Arkham games generally fit into the timeline. You have Arkham Origins first, followed by Arkham Asylum, then Arkham City, and finally ending with Arkham Knight. We know that VR has to take place somewhere around City and Knight, given that there's a number of clues and references related to both games scattered throughout VR. For instance, the Jason torture video we see in the Batcave in VR was originally seen by players as one of Batman's hallucinations in Arkham Knight. We also discovered during an analysis of Batman's blood that it's still infected by the Joker's blood.
Collecting blood sample. Sample analysis. Infected with the Joker's contaminated blood.
And the fact that a green-eyed Batman apparently lost control and was willing to murder, both of these things were resolved by the end of Arkham Knight. So it's safe to assume that the events of VR happen after the events of Arkham Knight, right? However, once you look closer, that's where the confusion for a lot of people starts to set in. At the end of Arkham VR, we see Batman inside cell 425, which houses the Joker, where he realizes that he killed both Nightwing and Robin before turning to the mirror in his cell and finding out that he lost control and has become the Joker, something that doesn't happen until the end of Arkham Knight, albeit ever so briefly, which this game can't take place after since Arkham Knight ended with the Joker being locked away by Batman in his subconscious and Bruce faking his death to become a scarier version of himself. So that means it takes place after Arkham City then, right? After all, earlier in the game, it's mentioned by Robin that the Joker graffiti and the traps must have been created by a copycat, a reference to Joker's death in Arkham City.
This graffiti, some kind of Joker copycat, maybe?
However, if this game takes place after City, then how could Batman kill Nightwing, allow Killer Croc to kill Robin, and lose control of his body by the Joker if the events of Arkham Knight still haven't happened yet? It's because of stuff like this that made a lot of people just think this game either just plain doesn't make sense, or isn't canon at all, or something to that effect. But what they fail to realize is that this entire game takes place in one of Batman's fear-driven Joker hallucinations, sometime after Arkham City, but before the start of Arkham Knight. No, seriously, Batman Arkham VR is all one big dream sequence, something I absolutely hate when it comes to theories like this, but absolutely makes sense here if you put all the pieces together. How do I know all this? Well, first, let's take a look at the placement in the timeline. As I mentioned earlier, Robin points out that the Joker is confirmed dead, something that happened at the end of Arkham City, and we see Batman is dealing with the effects of his infected Jokerized blood, something that he's dealt with by the end of Arkham Knight. Clearly, it's not as advanced here, since for a large portion of the game, Batman is still able to get around and do Batman things without his eyes changing colors or feeling Joker-type urges to kill, things like that. Speaking of the Joker, the game even works in the locations of the Joker's infected victims. In Arkham Knight, we find out that a few people were infected by the Joker's blood and have begun transforming into versions of him. By the time players find this out, Batman already has them locked away in special cells for examination so he can figure out how to cure them. However, Robin mentions in a message that the blood samples from the infected suspects were left in the Batcave, meaning these people haven't been kidnapped by Batman yet.
So, it wasn't easy, but I managed to get a sample of Christina Bell's blood from the Queen Industries crime scene. I left it with the others. Let me know what it turns up.
If you go and examine the Bat computer, you'll also find out that Batman has 3 separate files on it. One for the events of Arkham Asylum, one for the events of Arkham City, and instead of one for Arkham Knight, there's only one for the Riddler, who's also mentioned to have gone underground since the events of Arkham City and hasn't been seen since.
Riddler has not been sighted since the shutdown of Arkham City.
Even Wayne Manor, which got destroyed at the end of Arkham Knight, is still standing and looking amazing. And finally, Bruce Wayne still has a secret identity in his normal Batman costume, something that could only happen between City and Knight, but not after Knight. Okay, so the game takes place in between Arkham City and Arkham Knight, but how is it a dream? First off, the lack of any changes to the status quo. In VR, we see Nightwing and Robin killed, and the Iceberg Lounge, the refuge of the Penguin, is blown up unknowingly by Batman, and yet all of them are still untouched by the events of Arkham Knight. Knight. Second, during the Riddler's surprise appearance and challenge at the end of the story, he scoffs at calling the game's world reality, implying that wherever you are, it isn't actually the Gotham City previously seen in the Arkhamverse.
I've infected every corner of this so-called reality.
Finally, and easily the most damning here, is that throughout the game, you hear alarm clocks, morning talk shows on the radio, and even Alfred's voice telling Bruce to wake up. Alright, so this whole thing's a dream, fine. But why though? What's the point of us playing through one of Bruce's nightmares? The point is that we're seeing why a portion of Arkham Knight happens the way it does. Because we're seeing the very first Joker hallucination he ever had. Think about it. This has to be the first hallucination of the Joker taking over his body that Bruce has had after the events of Arkham City, which ends up driving the events of Arkham Knight, if you take into account all the Arkham Knight references I mentioned earlier. Even the Easter egg in Arkham Knight's DLC points towards this being the very first hallucination Bruce ever had. In case you hadn't seen the video promoted by Arkham Videos from a while ago, the Easter egg basically has Batman uncovering a hidden wall in Wayne Manor covered in notes regarding Arkham VR's plot, including Cell 425, the Joker's cell and the hallucination, bodies in the morgue, and shrapnel. Both of these involve a portion of Batman's detective work in the game, and he knew his killer, referencing Nightwing's knowing that the killer was actually Batman himself. See, it all fits together. It is absolutely insane. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to click that like button, maybe leave me a comment while you're at it, and go ahead and click that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check out any of my social media pages. I've got a Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. All those links are going to be in the description below. And I've also got my last video right there in the middle of your screen. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and click it, check it out. Alright, and I will see you all next time.